Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm pretty excited to share this. I became more excited when I saw the list of disciplines of people in this room. It's completely wild. All the parts of the university represented right here. Just so you know who each other are, well, I'll get to that. Start with me. I borrowed a lot of this. The best part of this workshop, honestly, is already done. You've downloaded a code notebook that you can run in your own world for no money, and it has little snippets. And where you see one hashtag, the sort of results for some hashtag, you can just change which hashtag and run it, and you'll get results for that. Where you see one username, you can put in a different username, you'll get results for that. So like, without knowing any code, without knowing any Python, without staying for the rest of this, if you just sort of packed your bags and walked out, you'd actually still have 80% of the workshop. So that's great. I'll just really spend most of this walking through that. A little other work on kind of strategy, other resources, the broader ecosystem, and of course, and like a little like what's an API, talking about that. But in terms of the content and takeaway, you've already taken it away. I'm a professor in the communication department. I'm also a part of the computational communication, computational social science designated emphasis. If you are a PhD student and you want to get a PhD minor, you can get a minor in computational social science, and that's great. I teach a grad course this is one kind of lecture from. So if you want to go more into this kind of stuff, also scraping Instagram and scraping your own web history and making robocalls and like reading all Project Gutenberg, then you want to take Communication 212. If you're a grad student, if you're an undergrad, you want to take Communication 152V, 153, and 151. Okay. That's enough about me. Oh, no, a little bit more about me. I like talking about me. I really like studying like small-scale democracy, like online communities or people in co-ops and keeping the kitchen sink clean and or trying in futility to do that. I study self-governance computationally with big data, and if that's really cool, you can talk to me. You are from all over. Most of you are grad students. The next biggest chunk of you, which is I'm guessing like 10%, is undergrads. The next biggest chunk is staff, and then some postdocs. And I don't think, am I right? Are there any faculty in the room? Honestly, I was expecting some. I'm super curious about the staff. Can I hear from some staff what brings you here and what your deal is, and yeah, what you're getting get out of this and all that?
I came to UC Davis because I wanted to go back to school and get a master's online. So I'm going through Georgia Tech master's in analytics.
Okay.
So this kind of complements it.
Fantastic. So yeah.
So I guess like I was a microbiology major as an undergrad, and then I got like a job in research IT, and I did my learning Python and stuff on my own. I haven't decided like what grad program to apply for yet, but this is where I am right now.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, I saw there's got to be others because there's several on the sign up, and we're full. That's great. Yeah.
Information security office. So use this to get data from various systems to find out what bad guys are doing.
Oh, great. Maybe you're going to scrape, maybe live stream some of these security accounts that are always saying this threat, this threat, this threat.
We have several systems that have various data. So we use the APIs to get at the data and then pull them all together and then correlate.
Wow. That actually sounds more useful than anything I've ever done. So that makes me feel like I'm doing some good. Let's see. Oh yeah, anything else? No, you guys are really from it seems like from every school, there's like food science in here, and there's psych, and there's there's some computer science, but not too much. If it's too much, then you feel like there's not diversity. It's just all of it. Okay, so that's me, that's you. Now I'm just going to tell you what APIs are. Then we're going to walk through the code. Then we're going to pull out of the code. I'm going to try to save. Actually, if anyone's good at like watching the clock, maybe because it's a bad habit and they always want to be somewhere else. maybe you just interrupt me at 15 before this workshop ends, so I have time to go through the resources. Hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully I'm going to go pretty quick on everything to leave time at the very end for exercises. I actually just put a bunch of like stuff we can do. Hopefully we'll get, that's super unlikely now that I'm like realizing how much I like talking. Hopefully the last half hour we can just like have a quiet time and meet up, and like you can partner with the person next to you and just like do something, one of these things, and I'll walk around and help. Okay, so we'll start with our working code. So when I run an experiment, I have to get IRB approval. I have to get ethics approval to do experiments on people. If you do a survey, you have to get IRB to do empirical work on human beings. You don't have to do an IRB to study the internet, to scrape the web. Why? Because the web is public. You know, you can go, someone's own personal computer is serving content to the world. They're volunteering this information to the world. And you can access it from anywhere. The web is public. And so if something's on what's special and interesting about that is the web is also text. Literally every web page that you're used to web pages being these interactive things with pictures and graphics and tiles and that's all a text file your computer downloaded. The text file had a bunch of instructions called HTML, and it followed those instructions to translate that text file into some interactive document. At the end of the day, it's text file. So anything you can learn by reading a text file is now data that's publicly available to you, because all of the web is text, and all text on the web is public. So what scraping is just what I said. Instead of manually looking at the source code of 100 sites or one site 100 times and like reading it and then pulling out the little bit you like, it's just telling Python to do that. And you can teach Python where to look on the page to get just the little part of that text file that you want. Let's say there's a data table, like a table that you can put right into some data set that you're building. Well, above and below that table is a bunch of HTML, and so you can kind of skip to the part you want. I'll give you an example. So this is a website I built just sort of as a hobby, fun thing. You can click anywhere, and it'll say in Davis, and it'll say what's growing there, unless it's broken. Okay, yeah. So walnuts, right behind my house is walnuts, sunflower seeds, strawberry, and almonds. And here's all the pesticides. Hey, that's neat. Let's look at the source code of that. So view page. I just right-clicked, view page source. This is the text file of that web page. It's a bunch of instructions. And if we look in, we can correspond bits of these instructions to what's going on. So div map. See? Oh, see Squiggle? Squiggle is the sort of squiggly header. I can actually do something more interactive. I'm going to right-click and hit inspect. I'm going to hit this little button here. You can do this for any page and hover over parts, and it'll zip me to the parts of the instruction that are relevant. So this is the header, and here's the part of that page we were just looking at, these instructions. It just skips us right to Squiggle. And I can like change it. And so if I looked up Squiggle, I could get all the text. I could scrape all the titles of web pages that were written by me. I can change things as well. Okay, great. So you can use your browser. Mostly we use our browser to interact, but you can use your browser to go a little bit under the hood and start to observe these text files, interact with them. And that becomes necessary because you have to tell the computer which part of the website you want. Okay. Now, let's keep moving. So what's scraping? Scraping is reading that text file. What's an API? API is a scraper. Let's see. Actually, wait, did I lose a slide? There we are. Okay. I'm getting a lot. So it stands for Application Programmer Interface, but who cares? That doesn't really matter. Just call it an API. That's like a word. It just has all caps. A scraper is a program I write that goes to a bunch of web pages and pulls out the text I want. An API is Sometimes that's like going through the back door, kind of. That's taking something that was intended to be viewed by humans and making the computer read it. However, sometimes people want you to look at their website. They want you to pull information from them, so they want to make it easier. So instead of them writing a bunch of human readable stuff for you to translate back to computer, in addition to providing their web page, they'll also provide a version of all those site content in a way that's computer readable from the beginning. That's what an API is. So as far as your computer is concerned, scraping, we're writing a web scraper for a web page is kind of going in through the back door, and using the API for a web page is going in through the front door. It's just using it how it's intended. So it sounds like some messy jargon, but a lot of computer science concepts, they're just a bunch of awful acronyms that seem horrible, but really it's kind of a simple concept once you know it. Actually, any questions there? All right, yeah. Okay, that's great. I'm about to get to that, which means I'm structured well. Okay, good. So why do APIs exist? Most people don't know that the web is all text files. Of those who do, there's three types. There's the people who want to be scraped. They're going to be the ones who write APIs. There's the people who don't. They're going to obfuscate. They're going to make it hard to scrape, and they're not going to provide an API. Then there's people who are particular about it. So I'll get to them. They sort of like being scraped under their terms. So most people who don't know that the web, if they're in this first category, then they don't have an API because they don't. What's that? So it's just these categories that do. So let's talk about each of these three categories of person. First, there's the don't scrape me's. Who are they? A lot of social media, anyone where data equals money. You can think what, Bloomberg. You can think, I don't know, who's a site that someone like realized they have to pay to get their data? Oh yeah, okay. I don't know who counts. You know, I used to do nonprofit stuff. There's a company called GuideStar that like publishes a bunch of information about nonprofits, including all their like founding docs. You can do like a bunch of forensic stuff, but they charge for that. Just any company that like exists on the internet to provide information, but they make money off of it. They don't want to be scraped. I scraped GuideStar and lost my account. So they'll put up obstacles. One example is they'll kind of watch who's doing what to make sure no one's taking too much of their entire website. But with Twitter is actually a good example of putting up obstacles, as is Google. I'm going to give you a little example there. So you notice when I said here, these are pretty descriptive. I'm hovering over header here, and this is the header of the site. I hover over Squiggle, and there's something squiggly. I hover over map outer, and like the whole map gets highlighted. And then within that, just map. You see, like map outer covers everything. Then map inner just covers like the map. Okay. So like these parts of the site are descriptive. I wrote it so it's descriptive so that for me, there's meaningful correspondence between what I see and what I'm writing. That's not always the case. This is part of what I mean by obfuscation. So let's just Google something, and then we're going to look at the site content of the first hit. What's the first hit of this? Is right there. The Wikipedia article on pennies. Look, that's not very descriptive, is it? Let's do that again. You see that right there? S3UUCC. There's a code referring to that part of the page, the first hit, and it's completely obfuscated. It means nothing, and it'll change tomorrow. So if you want to scrape Google by referring to this sort of address on the page, you have to change your scraper every day or every hour or every user or every refresh or something. Twitter does the same thing. They deliberately change the page structure and the names of things randomly to make it hard to scrape. So this is called obfuscation. Sometimes they'll do it because they don't want to be scraped at all. Sometimes they'll do it because they want you to go the official way. They say the humans stuff is for humans. If you want the machine stuff, go through our machine route. Either because it saves us a headache or because we make more money that way. All right. Keep it moving. Actually, questions about that. Don't scrape me is what I mean by obfuscation. I'm getting the idea across, maybe. Okay. Then there's people who do want to be scraped. Who wants to be scraped? Government sites, they like, yes, our responsibility is to provide information. Does anyone scrape government data on anything? Yeah, what do you? When I say scrape, I mean use. Do you use government data on anything? PubMed. Okay, great, great. You scan many papers on PubMed? Okay, great, great, great. So is PubMed government? No way. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, so they have a public mission, which is to provide information about articles. So of course they're going to be easy to access. Anyone else uses like government data? Yeah. EPA. Okay, great. EPA. They must do all kinds of stuff. What's some examples of the kind of data that's just for free? Okay. NOAA provides, weather reports of the Earth for free. So this is all stuff you can just get. And do you get it by scraping? No, because they want you to get it. They want anyone to be able to do cool stuff with it. So they built an API to make it possible for your computer to get it easily. Wikipedia is a great example. Literally everything that's ever happened on Wikipedia, every edit, every user who joined, every user who got kicked off, every little tiny event is stored. And you can go through the entire history of Wikipedia like a movie. It's crazy. And then other programmers like people using stuff they built. So programmers will nerd out and build an API for their little toys. When you are a please scrape me, you build something. I'm going to distinguish between a public API and a private API. A public API is one you can just sort of hop on. A private API is one that you have to like register with. Can anyone give me an example of a private API they might be about to interact with? Hey, look at that. You all had to register, so you got the thing. So we're going to call Twitter a private API. Let's look at an example of a public API to kind of ground this out. I built this into the notebook, so let's load up the notebook. Raise your hand if you have no idea what I mean by can you see kittens? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Higher, a little higher. It's like okay, that's like 25%, 30%, yeah. And then yeah, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about by kittens. Okay, great. So if you know what I'm talking about by kittens, you did some of the instructions, which you didn't have to do, so no pressure if you didn't. You got a certain amount far in the notebook. What we're going to do right now is load up the code notebook, but I started the code notebook off with some textual instructions that we're going to kind of go through together. So what am I doing? First, I'm going to a website, colab.research.google.com. What you're going to get is the Python version of Google Docs or Google Sheets. It'll open up very nicely. And then I'm going to hit, if I just escape this, I get this sort of interface that says, welcome to Collaboratory, blah, blah, blah. I'll close the table of contents. And what's going to happen is this is like a document that's a mix of text and code. Raise your hand if you've never encountered a code notebook before. You might be like Jupyter or something. If Jupyter means nothing to you, raise your hand. This isn't very good. Okay, everyone put your hands up. Yeah. If Jupyter means something to you, take your hand down. Really? Okay, wow. So only a couple of people don't know. Okay, haven't encountered code notebook before. So a code notebook is this file that mixes text and code. When I hit this play button, I will run the code. How many seconds are there in a day? 24 times 60 times 60 produces 86,000. How many seconds in a week? A bunch more. Okay, so that's the default notebook that just happened when we opened Colab. I'm gonna go to File, Upload Notebook, choose a file. Then what I did earlier was I went to that link I sent around, I downloaded that IPyNB file. What an awful ending of a file name. And I'm just going to choose that file that I just downloaded. Wonderful. How nice. It'll load up this. Seriously? Does this happen to other people? It's rude. What? That's madness. What's going on? Okay, I'll try Chrome actually. Oh, they might have killed. I think Google might have killed crippled Chromium. Let's see. Sorry, Chromium. I'm being a nerd. Let me just figure something out. Do I have to log in? No, I'm logged in. Okay. Ugh. Everyone, you're not going to be able to see my password, but you can try. Oh no. Oh no. My computer's freaking out about something. Upload. Research in between the Google and the rest of the stuff means that it changes without warning. But mostly it'll be fine. Yeah, question. Then you can, oh yeah. Thank you, thank you. Anyone else crashing? I love crashers, by the way. So I'm like, you're my favorites. Okay.
Okay, I'll come to the back.
Okay.
Can you share your screen again?
Oh, my bad. I'll reopen Zoom. Okay. Start, no, not start video. Oh, right. Okay, thank you. Zoom master here. Zoom link. Okay, the green outline. All right, so all that's telling us to do is we're going to go to placekitten.com. This is going to be adorable. Placekitten.com. Okay, here's like the whole thing of placekitten.com. Placekitten.com says how to use it itself. Wait. Okay, placekitten.com has a bunch of kitten pictures. Now, if and it's telling me, okay, add to the end of the URL here, add 2 numbers separated by backslashes, okay? So 400 and then 400, okay? What do I get? I get a kitten picture that's 400 by 400 pixels. If I change one of them, give me more kitten. I want more kitten. About twice as much kitten. There, now, but except tall, that's ugly. So I'm sort of putting together what this means. If I switch the 400 and the 800, instead of getting something that's tall, I get something wide. What's going on? Well, I'm just going to guess. The first number is the width, and the second number is the height. I'm specifying kitten pictures. If I put a slightly different number, I'll get a slightly different kitten picture, one that is 1 pixel wider. This is useful. The reason this was invented was there was some nerd on the internet, and he was trying to mock up websites, and he just wants placeholder images. So he just threw something together real quick that gives him a placeholder image of any size for when he's mocking up websites, and he made it public. And now you have your first API. Why is this an API? Because this happens to be a special API. It's kind of human readable, right? Like it's pretty clear what all these things do. There's a third instruction. I can add a G as a first thing before the numbers, and I'll get a picture of that exact same size but grayscale. So we can do different colors. We can do grayscale or not. Okay, let's do really tiny. Let's do a tiny, sweetie little thing. Little baby kitten. I don't think it'll be a baby. It might just be small. They're a really small kitten picture. Oh, but I want color. I want to look in his little eyes. Oh, or hers. Okay, there. You get it. So this is a site I can interact with entirely through 2 numbers and like a little flag, the G or no G, right? So that's what we kind of mean by 2 numbers and a flag. Like computers know how to talk numbers and flags. Like so. This site, even though it's human interactwithable, it's also computer interactwithable. And because it's computer interactwithable, we call it an API. Any questions? And so what we can do, so API can be a really complicated thing where you have this giant authentication process. It's a total pain in the butt and all that stuff. But it can also be as simple as, instead of you typing placekitten.com/400/400 in your web browser, you type placekitten.com/400/400 in this one line of code. And instead of your browser going to that web address, Python goes to that web address, pulls down the text file. Remember, it's a text file. It's a bunch of ones and zeros, and then does whatever you want with it because it's code, and you can do whatever you want with code. Let's do that. So here we have, I'm scrolling down. Your first API is placekitten.com. We just did a bunch of playing around with placekitten.com in your browser. Now we're going to scroll down, and now we're going to do placekitten.com in code. So we'll just do what we did, but the Python version. Instead of my browser going to placekitten.com, Python is going to go to placekitten.com. So what I mean by boilerplate, boilerplate means I look scary, but you don't have to know what I mean. You just have to run me. And maybe that's not always a good example to run random code by people on the internet, but you can trust me. So I'm going to hit the play button. There's a shortcut for play that, I don't know, I like it. I do a shift return, maybe you care. Shift return, and what just happened when I ran that? You see this empty square brackets here? I keep pointing at my screen. You see that? After I've run this, that used to be empty square brackets. Now there's a 2. If I run it again, it'll change to a 3. That says that A, this code's been run, and B, it's the third thing that got run since you loaded the page. If I do, and then I'm going to run this, and it'll say 4. 4. OK, great. Now I'm going to do runtime. I don't really use a lot of these commands up here, so if this feels like a lot of stuff, don't worry about it. There's one thing I kind of do sometimes, which is reset all runtimes. This is a way of just wiping the memory, just like starting from scratch. Once I do that, this square brackets reappeared. It's like it never happened. That's nice for getting a kind of clean slate, blank start. So I'm just going to run my boilerplate, having no idea how it works. OK, and having run my boilerplate, I've got 2 functions that work now. One says URL to image. It's going to take this literal text. Remember I said we typed it in? We just typed it in. We typed in 800, and then we got this picture. And then I gave you the second function called print image that takes a picture. This looks like a variable, but it's a picture assigned to this variable. And we run it, we'll get the picture. Great. And in this notebook, you're going to see this little convention. I have a rocket ship emoji. It's code. If you're not familiar with code, you don't know what it does. I put a little rocket ship next to every line of code that goes to the internet. So a lot of the code is just going to take something from before and do stuff to it, all within the little world of the code notebook. But some lines of code go to the internet and pull stuff down from the internet so that the other code can play with it. So this first line goes to the internet. This second line doesn't go to the internet. It just takes something that came from the internet in a different line and images it. So there's no rocket ship next to this line. There is a rocket ship next to that line. Adorable. Oh, 3 kittens for the price of 1 API call. That just makes us feel great. And so on. And then last is a 75 by 75. We'll get a tiny little fella. All right, isn't that sweet? So all that to say, a web API is a vocabulary that makes it easier for code to talk to the internet. Any questions? Oh, yeah, any questions? Something? No, someone sort of wiping their nose. It's kind of a fake out. I have a question. Is anyone not see kittens right now? Does anyone not make it? Did we lose anybody? Come on. Someone didn't make it, and I don't want you to be left behind because you made it this far. OK, we're all here. That's great. I'm happy with that. Let me go back to my PowerPoint for like 2 slides. There's this third category of person. We had the please don't scrape me's. We had the please scrape me's. Now we have the scrape me's on my term. That's most of social media. That's all. This is a little redundant with the please don't scrape me's. When data equals money, when the resource is abusable. So Twitter is abusable. But when Twitter found out how much it was being used to influence elections, they added restrictions to their API. So by exercising that, by making everybody register, they have a lot more control over the manner in which their resources are used, and so they can do. They're less powerless to prevent social media campaigns run by authoritarians to fake grassroots support or whatever. So you use an API. Private APIs are kind of a bummer. You have to do all this extra work. You kind of have to know more code, unless I give you code snippets that work. And a lot of times they're lame. It's just the people trying to make a buck off their data. But sometimes it's like reasonable, like fine, this could be used to abuse people, and so they have to control who has access to it. That's fine. We accept it. We deal, even though it's kind of a bummer. Twitter is going to be our main example of that. They're scraping on my terms. So a private API demands something called an API key. A key is not like a key in your pocket. It's actually a string of awful characters that look like they mean nothing. That's the awful string of characters you copied into your web authentication, web science authentication.txt. Those are your keys. Keep them secret. They are passwords. The reason I made you create that text file is I don't want you you're totally welcome to be like, hey, Seth, thanks for the workshop. I played around a little bit more and almost got this working, but couldn't. Could you take a look? This sounds like really bad boundaries, and maybe it's an awful idea for my career or tenure, but I'm totally willing to do that for you. But what I don't want you to do is when you do that is paste your password of your personal email and therefore I don't want you to paste your keys, right? I don't want to see that when you send me your notebook. By putting your notebook, putting your secret key into this little text file, you'll put yours up, and then I'll put mine up when I have to run your code. And I never saw it. I protected your privacy. These are sensitive and secret, so keep them secret. Your API key identifies you uniquely. That's the point of it. I'm going to give a little bit of word about why Python. Do I have to say why Python? It's sort of the best first language to learn. Yeah, question. No. Oh, I'm like trigger happy for people who have questions. It's really insanely versatile. It's widely used and respected. It's written to be readable. As an awesome community, you can put any question you have on the internet, and random people on the internet want to help you. And you can learn how to write good questions to make it more likely to help you. And it kind of doesn't matter what first language you learn. Whatever language you learn, if you get good at it, it becomes really easy to pick up another, more than human languages. Because code is all talking to the same thing at the end of the day. It's all translating between a human and ones and zeros. I said what that is. Okay, yeah, so we can get to our code now. That was all APIs, so now we can get into Twitter. I'm just giving you, if you came here to learn how to program, I've got bad news. But if you don't know how to program, what you do know how to do is hit the play button. And so that's great, because normally the way pedagogy works is we'll teach you all the boring stuff without telling you why you would ever want to learn it or what's neat about it. And then we'll do about 3 years, or in the case of mathematics, 16 years of that. And then the people who survive, we'll show them a bunch of cool stuff that you can do with everything you spent 16 years learning. I just want to skip to the good stuff. So you have code, you see it does something cool and interesting, and maybe that now when you have to learn all the boring stuff, like what a list comprehension is or what a for loop is or whatever, you kind of see where where this is going, and that motivates you and makes you want to learn it. Does anyone literally just they know they have no idea they really have no Python, no code? Does anyone know no code? That could happen. It's fine. How about they know no Python? Okay, yeah, but you know what? What do you know instead? R. Okay. R. Yeah. Okay. Great. So you're already in a pretty good position. Honestly, you kind of know Python already. I mean, you don't really. And here's the best thing to Google when you're picking up a new language is just Google R guide to Python. or Python Guide to JavaScript. Another great thing is Python gotchas for our programmers, or JavaScript gotchas, or JavaScript gotchas for for Python programmers, or whatever. Like, put the two languages together, and random people will write a blog that, like, here's what destroyed my brain. I'll save you a lot of time by just telling you what to expect in this transition. Okay, so let's run this code. We're going to install, so yeah, I'm going to just show, this is snippets for the most common things people do on Twitter. They want to pull down everything by a user. They want to pull down a bunch of stuff on a hashtag, or they want to pull down a bunch of stuff in a location. So those are what I'm going to kind of focus on. We're going to get into some finer points. We're going to get, most of working with the Twitter API is working around the very restrictive limits it imposes on you. For example, this notebook is less than, hopefully, no, it might be more. You can only, so think of an API as a question you're allowed to ask. You're allowed to ask Twitter a question. And every time you see a rocket ship and you run that code, you just ask Twitter a question. Twitter, one of the throttling mechanisms Twitter's imposed on people who aren't paying is that you're only allowed to ask 15 questions in 15 minutes. Basically, you're only allowed to ask an average of 1 question a minute. So if this notebook takes less than 15 minutes to run and makes more than 15 calls, you'll get an error at the bottom saying that nothing happened because you exceeded your limit, and you just have to sit on your hands for 15 minutes until your number of questions is back up. So by me going at a fairly deliberate pace, we're going to make sure that we don't exceed that 15. Now that's super annoying, and so I'm going to repeat what I said before. Most of learning the Twitter API is learning workarounds to all the arbitrary limits they impose on you getting anything useful out of it. They've almost taken it apart beyond the point of usefulness. They've almost made it unusable. It's more of a marketing thing that makes you want to pay. However, I'm allergic to paying, so there's lots, and other people are too, and there's lots of workarounds. And I'm going to give you pointers on the workarounds. The more of a dramatic and impressive and fancy workaround you use, the more Python you have to know. So some of these will either be motivation for you to learn Python, or a chance for you to show off how much Python you already know. But, you know, we can actually get, I mean, think about it. Let's say with the workarounds, to build your data set, it would take 2 months. And let's say that if you were better at Python, you know for a fact that it would only take 10 minutes to collect that same data set. You have, what did I say, 5 minutes? Yeah, you have 2 months minus 5 minutes to learn more Python. And it was break even, but you never forget the Python afterwards. So like, it's better to use these workarounds as a motivation to learn more stuff because you didn't like stop becoming good after that lab. It'll be these kinds of things that like you sort of realize this would take 6 months to do manually, so I have 6 months to learn. Those are great excuses to learn, to force yourself to learn the code. Enough talking. We're going to run more boilerplate. We're actually installing a package. The Colab notebook, this notebook, is not really actually running on your computer. If you were to check your activity monitor and see like what your CPU is doing right now, it's not doing anything really. This notebook's being hosted by Google somewhere in the world, probably Mountain View. They're providing you a computer that's actually probably better than yours. They're providing you 2 cores, 25 gigs of RAM, and 25 gigs of space and 16 gigs of RAM. It's a pretty impressive computer. Downside is it stops existing after 12 hours. So if you want to run this overnight, then it'll break. We're going to run more boilerplate. And when we ran this pip install, which you don't have to understand, we actually installed software on Google's computer over there. They give you a lot of control over the computer that you're playing around with. You can even use this whole setup to code in R instead of Python. It's very flexible and exciting. Now we're going to authenticate. This is probably where you made it. Now we're going to go past where you made it. I'm going to run this code, and I'm going to get this little boxy here. Oh, look at this little boxy. I'm going to choose File. I'm going to run my website's authentication. You'll run yours. We're each going to register, authenticate with Twitter with our own keys. I run that, and once you've run that, then all the code below this block is going to run and do Twitter stuff. Some of it on your own personal Twitter account. Who had to create a Twitter account in order to participate? 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, a bunch. Wow, okay, wow, huh, that's interesting. And hopefully you like followed some people and maybe got some people to follow you. No, or maybe you followed some people at least. This will be a lot more boring if you're not following anybody. So maybe follow someone. And if you want a follower, maybe I should have done this in the beginning. If you want a follower, I could take people's handles and put them up there, and you can like follow each other. It'd be adorable. Oh yeah, you can follow. Oh my God, this is, by the way, the entire reason I'm doing this workshop is just to get more followers. That's not. I'm not really. This is me. Does anyone want to say their own so that they get a follower? This is like bald self-promotion. UC Davis data sci? UC Davis data sci, no spaces. So someone else want a follower? No? Okay. It was, yeah, okay, what's yours? Rogue? Rogue underscore PhD. It's not case sensitive, is it? I don't think so. Yeah. All right, anyone else? So yeah, that's the idea. Then that'll make some of these more interesting. Okay, I've done that. So I'm just running more boilerplate. Again, I don't know what this code does. I'm just running it. Question?
So where do we now upload our private API keys to?
You've now uploaded your private APIs, yeah, to a computer owned by Google. It's in a virtual machine that is private to your account. So Google knows it, but they already know everything. And they'll forget it as soon as you refresh. As literally, if you do, remember runtime, reset all runtimes, it'll forget what your API keys are. You didn't upload it anywhere permanent. You uploaded the data from the text file into the notebook, but the text file itself is still on your machine and only on your machine. Did that answer your question? Great, great. Did that how sketchy does that feel? Par for the course. Okay, it could be worse. I like came up with the least bad solution I could to this whole, how do I teach you guys something without sharing my keys in a way that is usable and all that stuff. So I'm just running this code, don't know what it does, but it's going to create this little thing, this variable called API, and API is going to be the basis of every other call we do. Every rocket ship from now on is going to have API dot something. So let's just go through them. We're going to start by pulling down one tweet. We're going to, how do I know one? It says there. We're going to pull it from our own timeline. So this is home timeline. There's a lot of restrictions on Twitter. There's no restrictions on scraping yourself. So nothing happened, but that's okay. We created a variable, but there's no output because I didn't output any output. This next code, we're going to output the output. We're going to output the one tweet that I just pulled down. I guess I follow ProPublica, and they just tweeted, "What is ProPublica?" Maybe they weren't sure. Now that's a tweet as far as we understand. What's a tweet? Oh, a tweet is a user and some content, right? That's what a tweet is. Actually, a tweet's quite a bit more. I'm going to print out a tweet. Remember a tweet? This is literally the tweet we just downloaded. I'm going to print it out to the screen. Here's what a tweet really is. See all this? This is what a tweet is. Let's look at it. Let's look at what a tweet is. I almost have to make this smaller. No, it's already pretty small. A tweet is a bunch of information. Let's see. It was a tweet something that was created at a certain time. It can have a picture. It can have media, a whole lot of media. That's a list of all the media on this tweet. It's a thing that can mention other Twitter users. It's a thing that can be favorited. It's a thing with text. See, but the text of the tweet is a very small fraction of what a tweet is. This keeps going. It's a thing that came from a place sometimes, but not all times. It's a place that can be in reply to things. It's a thing with a unique identifier. There's a number that identifies this tweet as opposed to all other tweets. That's handy. Sometimes you're scraping a hashtag, you'll get duplicates. You can check the ID to make sure that you're not getting duplicates, to filter out duplicates. It's a thing that was in a language. This one happens to be in English. Twitter does its own language detection, which is super handy. If you only want tweets in some language, or if you want to filter out tweets that aren't in English, you can do that just by checking this. It's a thing that can be retweeted. It's a thing that might have sensitive material. It's a thing that might have sensitive material that's bannable. It's a thing that was posted by a user. Here's all the information about, this is what a user on Twitter is. A user on Twitter is someone who has favorited things. We're going nested. This is a nested object. The tweet contains all information about the person who posted it. That's, what's that like? That's like carrying around, in addition to your own DNA, your parents' DNA, which doesn't happen. Right? Yeah, that doesn't happen. That would be gross. Yeah. So it's like, so a tweet as a thing is a thing that carries all of the information about its parents, who in turn have all these attributes. A picture that describes them, a description of their header, a number of things they favorite, a number of things they follow, a number of things that follow them, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, that's what a tweet is. That's what a tweet really is. And as far as Python is concerned, I know what a Python dictionary is. Okay, yeah, this tweet is a Python dictionary, and I can reference parts of it. So let's say I just want to reference the language of a tweet. I'm going to hit code here, and this is going to create a new code block, okay? Code. So here I have a tweet. And I'm just going to type lang, and I'll just get the language of the tweet. Or I'll type full text. Full text. And I'll get my text back. Okay, so we can query, we can pull out the parts of that giant object and just see what we want to see. All right, great. So this is great. Suddenly we're like, this is familiar Python idiom. Dictionaries, like, we're good with dictionaries. If we know any Python, we're good with dictionaries. And now we can use Python, right, what we're familiar with, to talk to Twitter. All we have to do is know what the structure and the names of the things in that dictionary, and we're like, we're in, we're good. That is an API. That's what I mean by Twitter being able to talk directly to your computer. Pupate is the library is installed to do all this. Pupate translates from the API to Python idiom specifically. Okay, so it's not great. So how useful is that? Now you know how to pull one tweet from your own homepage. Now let's pull something from, let's pull more. We can change the count to 10. I'll just skip this. You can't pull more than 200 at a time. So I just pulled down 200 tweets. All I did was I changed this number, max count. Max count goes there. So I tried to pull 201 tweets. How many did I actually get? Here's all the tweets. Here's 200 tweets from my home account. That's a bunch. How many did I get? I printed out the number, 196. So the number you ask for, you won't necessarily get that many. You'll get almost that many. This is just weird limits of the Twitter API. I'm going to get rid of all that. Okay, so now we know how to pull multiple tweets from one account. How do we pull from someone else's account? We use this. This code is different than the previous code because instead of saying home timeline, now it says user timeline. And this function takes all the same arguments, except it takes one more in the beginning, the name of an account. I love the Merriam-Webster Dictionary's Twitter account. It's very hilarious and pedantic. So we'll pull down 20 tweets from there, and we're going to print them out. We're going to print them out using a for loop. So this is now a list of 20 tweets. We're going to go through every tweet in that and print it out. Print out the full text. Okay? I'm not teaching you Python. I'm like describing the code. Here's 20 tweets from Merriam-Webster. Let's see, what are they up to? Searches for bribe are up to 28 times. Anyone know why bribe is up 30 times? Impeachment. Pelosi just used the word bribery to clarify the Democrats' political message about the impeachment proceedings, to transition people from talking about quid pro quo. So now she's talking about bribery, and people are responding, and so on. These are all tweets. That's great. So we can also pull images down. We've got kittens, right? So tweets are a thing that can contain media. We can pull that media down itself. Rather than making you figure all that out and like what's pill, what's IO, bytes IO, I just wrote code that does it. That way, if you want images from Twitter, you can just replace Lisa Draws. This is Lisa Hanneman, who does Bojack. You can just replace that with some other account, and you can get all the images from whatever account you want. How do you do that? You just run this nice code, and it'll loop through all the images, all the tweets that come back, and print out the ones that had images. All the most recent 200 is what's going on. So we have incongruous. What else do we have? Nothing else. Anyway. We can, okay, so that's one thing we can pull down is tweets. We can also pull down followers and friends. Friends are the people who follow you on Twitter. I actually didn't know that. I thought it was follows and followers. Why is it useful to pull down someone's followers? Why would we want to do that? Or yeah.
You can see who supports a certain political candidate.
That's great. That's great. How about follows? Why would I want to know who follows somebody? Maybe you just want to count that number to see how popular they are. I don't know. Maybe you want to see like reciprocal follows. You want to see people who follow someone and are followed by that person. That might reflect like a reciprocated friendship or relationship. It might be more meaningful. It might be worth comparing. So here's code for that. This is really fun to teach a notebook without feeling any obligation to teach code. I can say this is what this does. Here's all the, okay, so Magical Realism Bot is a kind of a fun, quirky bot. It just posts randomly generated phrases. I actually have a link if you want to write a Twitter bot. You already have an API key. So go to cheapbotsdonequick.com and you can author a little bot that automatically generates tweets for you. So Magic Realism Bot basically does that. Magical Realism Bot is very is kind of an auteur and very fancy and high on the Twitter totem pole. How do I know? Because they don't follow. They have many followers, 115,000, but they don't follow anybody. Huh. They didn't have to do any trading for follows like the rest of us. But follow me. Okay, so we now know how to scrape ourselves or pull down tweets on ourselves. We know how to pull down tweets from a user account. We know how to pull down different aspects of information from a user account. Are we an hour? We're an hour in? This isn't bad. What's going wrong? Because this is way too much content for 2 hours. I must talk too fast. Oh, lucky you. Okay, so we can also, so that was API, what was that? That was API user sub timeline was the name of the function. Now we're going to look at a different function called API.search. API.search searches tweets for text. So I want to see every tweet mentioning BBC documentaries. And I'm just going to print out some information. What am I going to print out from the 20 tweets I get back? I'm going to get a screen name. I'm going to get when it was created, and I'll get the full text. All right, here, BBC itself is mentioning BBC documentaries and a bunch of random users. This is interesting. Look, this tweet doesn't mention documentaries, it just mentions BBC. And no, that mentions BBC. So, well, we're also, if we search long enough, we're also going to find some tweets that mention documentaries but don't mention BBC. So that search capability is an or. Give me any, this word or this word. If you put in several words, it'll be give me this word or this word or this word or this word. And you have to do some quality control to make sure you get both words. If you do a search for houseboats, you might get a bunch of tweets about boat houses. Using the search API is also how you'll search for hashtags. Hashtags are another thing you're going to want to search for. It's actually more likely you want to search for hashtags than for text. But we're actually using the same function because a hashtag is a type of text. So you don't have to do anything fancy. You put in the hashtag, and we'll get, for dad jokes, we'll get 20 dad jokes or 20 mentions of the idea of a dad joke. Yeah.
How can you search, for example, another example for BBC boundaries? How can you specify an type of search?
I don't know. Let's find out. Let's Google it. Let's see. Twitter. Search. I'm going to use the fancy word Boolean. That's how nerds say refer to logic. How to master Twitter search. First hit, basic Boolean operators. And it looks like we're allowed to just do capital and. Put and in all caps, and you'll get the and. Okay, great. What else can you do? You can put a thing in quotation marks to get exactly that phrase. You can put or in all caps to make the or explicit. You can search minus. If you search, when do I want to do this? I want to find all documentaries that were not made by the BBC. I would do the API.search, and then my thing would be documentaries space minus BBC. I can use search. Actually, search encapsulates kind of everything. If I want to search only the hashtags, only the tweets where one particular user used specific words, or all the tweets to a specific user, but only the ones that use the specific word. These are all keywords I can actually throw into the search API. Every mention of a user, I can pin dates down. Actually, I had no idea. I have to put this in my lesson. I didn't know it was this good. Look at that. I can filter. I can get only the retweets, only the replies. I can throw geocodes in. Man, you can just do everything. I could just throw my whole notebook away and just reduce it to this page. Okay, great. So yeah, API.search, super powerful. And of course, you can combine those. You can have an and a minus and a geotag and only get the retweets. You can do all that, but only the ones that are to a certain person. It can be really complicated. That's nice. Is someone you're stuck here, and it's your obligation to help me. Would you tell me, write me a note to include that in an update to the notebook? Thank you. Okay. More questions. That was a really good question.
So,
yeah.
Like with the hashtag dad joke, if I want to just search multiple hashtags,
Let's
put a list?
No. It's literally the text that the way you would type it in the Twitter. So what do you want to do? Well, you want to search a set. What set of hashtags do you have in mind?
I don't know. Like, let's say it was dad jokes and dogs or something. They're not related.
Right. Yeah, but Twitter's big, you know.
Yeah.
Twitter's big, so maybe we'll find something. Yeah. Look, we found. I'm guessing. I don't have it here. I'm sorry. It's not clear which of these lines is a tweet and which of these lines is several lines of a multi-line tweet. So I'm gonna like just put a little flag that tells me when a tweet's starting, and we'll just do that again. Okay, we found 2 tweets that mention both hashtag dad jokes and hashtag dogs. What do we have? We've got something about Pomeranians, and we've got this was, oh wait, what did I do?
Like, what's the default? Is it both of the hashtags or is it either?
Honestly, I get confused. I think it's something intelligent. So it's sort of a black box that sometimes it does and sometimes, by default, it does what it thinks you want. But if what it thinks you want isn't what you want, that's when you start breaking down your capital and your capital or. And you. Oh, yeah, no, literally. Well, no, listen, we don't even have to do this in Python. Let's just do it in Twitter. Here, I'll just, oh my God. No, just like this. Dad jokes and all caps. Puppies is better. It would be really cute. So like this is explicitly both. Dad jokes appears and puppies plural appears. But I missed puppy. You see puppy didn't appear, so I would have missed all those cute single puppies. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
And so literally, no, this is what I mean by API search takes the string that you would have typed anyway and just automates that. You put literally what you would have typed, put it in double quotes, put it in API.search, and you'll get that. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. More questions?
Before, when you mentioned that before Twitter required the private API and
Yeah.
your own key, and you said like bad actors were using it.
Yeah.
So like all that stuff came out from that tweet, and I'm having a hard time imagining like how did they use that badly, or is it just in general that bad actors do things on Twitter?
Okay, well, so I'm showing you the Twitter API for scientists. Scientists aren't interested in doing anything to the world. They just want to see, observe how the world is. I'm being ridiculous. But if this was Twitter API for marketers, maybe they don't care, specifically advertisers. They don't care what's happening. They just want to get the message out. So you can also use the Twitter API to post tweets, to automatically follow people, to do everything that you can do by clicking on the web page in Twitter, you can make Python do automatically. So this is what a bot is. We're halfway to a bot. We have the eyes of a bot now, but you just learn a little bit more of the API and you'll get the fingers of a bot, and you can automatically be on Twitter, automatically be on Facebook, on Instagram. You can write Python to interact with all social media. That's what a bot is. And it was probably written in Python. So next, the awful bot that follows you or whatever, in the back of your head, you know it was written in Python. Did that answer your question? Great. There was another.
What are the limits on times that it searches or dates that it searches? Like, will it go store data?
Yeah, so I'll get it. Will you remember to ask me that in a little bit?
When you say that you can use API, API to actually post things on Twitter, can you do that just from your account, or can you fake account?
I mean, what's a fake account, right? A fake account is one that's not your personal account, but you can create you can create as many accounts as you have emails. And you can create email, there's certain email providers that make it really easy to create 20 accounts. So a botnet. Yeah, you could create a fake grassroots support for your candidacy for Davis City Council. Yeah. Everyone thinks this guy's great. They know suspiciously a lot about him. Actually, I have a better answer to your question. One of the keywords that I just sort of really should have known this for the API.search lets you specify a date range from this to this. So if you want 200 tweets going back to 2004, but you keep getting them to 2016 because some user's really prolific, just add that as a search term that you only want them until 2006 or whatever.
Do you know if there's to say there were more than 200 for that time period, we'll just pull from like the most recent?
Mm-hmm.
Like the first.
Yeah, that is a question you can ask me again later. And also, everything I just said about that, I might be wrong. It's really, sometimes Twitter and everybody, they're not super transparent about the limits they impose, because if they told everybody, then the people abusing those limits would be faster at finding workarounds. But it creates a giant headache for the rest of us. So it could be that they, separate from just giving all the most recent tweets, however far back, it might be separate from that. They also don't let you search too far back in time unless you pay. I don't know. So actually, if anyone finds out, tell me, because I want to know. Well, the questions have been really good, so let's just keep going on questions. Yeah.
Curiosity. Was that through API that during 2016 elections that people kind of
Good question. I would guess that these people are very talented. They probably wrote their own stuff, and since they're Slavs, Slavs love optimizing C. is my stereotype. That's like a coder stereotype. So I bet you they wrote it all in C. I'm just making stuff up. I don't know the answer to your question. Yeah. I'm trying to think if that was super offensive. I don't think so. Maybe though. If so, tell me.
I have a
Yes.
question. When it's searching hashtags and it's returning the tweet, and I'm not a huge Twitter person.
Yeah.
Are there comments on the tweet, or is it just a retweet system?
That's a good question. There's such a thing as a reply to a tweet. You can reply to a tweet and you can retweet a tweet. And you can retweet a tweet with commentary. And those are different things, and you can impose different filters on all of those things. If you're just interested in the replies to, maybe there's some famous tweet that's so important it deserves its own paper, you can search Twitter just for the replies of that tweet. You might be restricted to only 800.
Right now we're seeing both the original tweet and any replies, or
I think so. Yeah, some of this is trial and error. Fortunately, in the metadata for the tweet, remember what a tweet is in that giant dictionary, there's flags for if it is a reply, and there's flags for if it is a retweet. Is it in reply to something? True or false? Was it retweeted? And then is it a retweet is in there somewhere as well. Yeah, everything is a tweet. A reply is a tweet, a retweet's a tweet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so you could filter your results. Like,
Yeah.
to say like find
Just
me a
replies,
reply,
just retweets, just,
okay.
yeah, exactly. And then why would that be valuable or interesting to do? Maybe if you want to see how some fake news got propagated through the internet, you would like follow, you could actually trace its trajectory through various influential actors and like do the forensics essentially to piece together who specifically hit the button that made this awful bit of fake news take off. All of the examples are political now. I don't have any non-political examples of things.
Is there a piece of information connecting the tweet to where it was retweeted from?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
is this, like,
Well,
obvious
so
question?
no, that's not an obvious question. Actually, I keep saying yes to things. I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but I don't actually know. Honestly, only reason I know anything about Twitter is because students ask me they want to scrape Twitter. I don't like scraping Twitter. Yeah, there's too much Twitterology in science these days. I have a whole separate lecture on that, on how to ask questions, on how to do research on Twitter in a way that helps you make generalizable claims, helps make sure you're studying humans and not Twitter users, which is its own challenge that you kind of start to get into when you get into all this. Question?
Yeah, so when working with this Twitter API, would it be correct to say that there are two types of data that we're getting are either tweets or users?
That's fair. There's other types of data you can get. Let me think. You can get the images people post, right? You can, that's kind of like, that's part of a tweet. It's a component of a tweet. Yeah, think within a tweet. What else is there? I don't know, there's like lists. Whatever, no, like literally, if you can click on it in the, on your browser, then there's some web access to it. And you can click on more stuff than just tweets and users. So therefore, the API can access more stuff than just those two things. I bet you can pull down your own account settings and change them programmatically.
The date's limited to a week.
No.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh, what a bummer. That's a typical. No, that can't be. I feel like I've gotten older tweets before. Yeah.
Keep in mind the search index is 7 days.
Okay. Look at that. That's search. So yeah, this is where we'll get into workarounds soon. I have to add that as a limit. My list of limits keeps growing. I'm going to add it right now. No, I'm not. I'm going to add it shortly. Remind me. Now let's do geolocation. So you can define either a box or a circle around any place on Earth and get all the tweets from those coordinates. So let's define what's more popular, Pier 30 as a tourist destination for people with phones. Pier 39 or the Tea Garden in SF. Tea Garden, Pier 39. Tea Garden, Pier 39. Tea Garden? Yeah, no one's, we've got like 2 tea gardens and one switched. That's bad news for Teagarden. So I'm just going to pull 50 tweets down. I'll get 50 of each, but here's what's going to be different is the timestamps will differ. And I'm going to see which, here's my reasoning. Whichever has more, okay, so what's the timestamp on the last tweet of Pier 39? Is that the 8th? No, yeah, the 8th. So 6 days ago. Is 50 tweets, hashtag Teagarden. Hashtag Pier 39 is the 11th. So there have been, so to get the most 50 recent tweets on Teagarden, I had to go back to the 8th. Whereas to get the 50 most recent tweets on Pier 39, I only had to go back to the 11th. That means there's a higher rate of tweets at Pier 39. So if Twitter users are a representative sample of humans, which they're not, Pier 39 is a more popular tourist destination. Sorry? 11. Oh, you're right. Right. So yeah, here's what's happening. My call to the Teagarden pulled down the most recent tweet, and then the one before that, and then the one before that, before that, before that, before that, all the way back to the 8th. Did that answer your question?
So you're saying if you want, you can't go beyond the 11.
No, in this case, I only asked for 50. You want to see how far it goes back? Let's do ask our max, which is going to be 200 because of arbitrary API limits. And we'll see what we get. There's 200. I'm also going to print out the length. Length of tweets SF2 to see how many I actually get. How many do I get? I get, oh my God. Ugh, seriously? Oh, I didn't print len. Forget about it. Look at that. Yeah, we're not allowed to, we go back to the 6th. How many days ago is the 6th? That's 8 days. So they're giving us a little bit of flexibility. It's more than 7, but it's not much better. That answered your question? Great. More questions? The circle's great. I have an assignment where what are circular things that people are on? I realized there's a couple lakes that are perfect circles because they're person-made. And so you'll see one of the assignments is to get all tweets from that lake. You just define a circle at the center of the lake. You just have to go and find the coordinates, and you can do that. A couple gotchas. Does anyone do like GIS stuff? GIS? Okay, yeah. So this is great for you. Here's all I want to tell you is that it's not the like EWNS coordinates. It's the positive number, comma, negative number. And this is literally a string. So this is a string with what's that one? Latitude. Then like in the string a comma. Then the string for longitude. Minus is everything west of GMT. And then there's a comma, and then there's your radius. I did a radius here. If you do a rectangle, I think you define 2 of the corners of the rectangle, and you'll get the whole thing. You might have noticed every single call has this extra little thing called tweet mode extended. That got added later because Twitter changed its limit to 280 characters. And that matters for some reason. Okay, that was geolocation. Here's code that does it. You just change the hashtag you're searching for, change the coordinates. You can search anywhere on Earth now. For people who have geolocation activated, who are not a representative sample of Twitter users, who are not a representative sample of humans. So now we'll go a little under the hood, like what were all the things that a tweet is, or what are all the attributes of a user? DIR lets us introspect. If you know STR from R, DIR is STR. So DIR shows, and if you don't know STR in R, it's great. So is DIR. So this lets us introspect and look at all the things in a user. These are all the things I can put in a dictionary as a key to get some value back. This is a great exercise. It's called introspection, and it's sometimes my first strategy for finding out, okay, I just got on this API, what does it actually give me? I'll do DIR from the object I got back, and I'll sort of look and guess what some of the things are. That's pretty common, because when getting into APIs means getting into API documentation, which is always bad, unless you have to pay. then it's good. Catch-22, so if someone's giving you a free API, it's probably very poorly documented. You probably have to figure it out yourself, which means using DIR a lot. Here's the other things we can pull. We can pull username. The screen name of a user is different than their username, which is the text that appears. It's separate from their @ code. Or is this a verified user? Yes or no? This is all the introspection. I can't get followers is a function. So to get the followers, I actually go to the internet. And here I got all the user objects of a large number, but not all of the users that follow Magical Realism Bot. And I can loop through those to get all the screen names of those users. That just like before. Okay, so everything we're doing is historical data. What if I want some dashboard that's giving me live Twitter action? Then you'll do something called using the streaming API. Streaming API doesn't limit you to 200. It can just keep going. As long as your computer's on, as long as your notebook's open, whatever, it'll stream tweets. What's the catch? Of course there's a catch. The catch in this case is you only get a 1% sample. So to get all of Twitter, you'd have to make about maybe hundreds, for overlap, hundreds of fake accounts and have them all streaming and then have them constantly deleting doubles. People have done this. I'm actually going to show you one who does it and then posts everything from every verified account. So it's a nice subsample. So like for your use case, I imagine you'll be using the streaming API. You'll be watching a couple security sites that are posting threats, and you'll be able to kind of see it. Does that sound? Yeah. That's an application. What's another application of the streaming API? You're monitoring some event live. It's just. So I have some boilerplate code, which I don't understand it either. So you're good. Then we're going to. I just copied it off the internet. Then I'm going to. I don't want this code to run, so but when I do run all, so I'm just going to change this to true to turn this code on. And now we're going to start streaming all the tweets that mention wonder and science, or not all, 1% of all tweets that are mentioning wonder and science. So this should actually be going 100 times faster, right? Twitter's pretty active. There's a lot going on. It's a big social system, and you can get this little window into it. How nice. Okay, so I've talked a lot about stuff we can do on Twitter. There's a lot of limits. You can only get 200 tweets at a time. You can only get a maximum of 3,200 tweets. If you do the 200 lots of times, you can only do it so many times. You can only go back 3,200. Sometimes 800 if you're interested in retweets. There's that 1% thing. There's that 1 week back in time thing. This is awful. So that's why I say so much of learning an API, a private API, is learning its limits and learning workarounds to its limits. This should be moved down. Can you tell me to move the limits thing down a little bit? Okay. Let's say I want 5 tweets from Merriam-Webster. Here's a good way to do that. It's just the code we did before. I got my 5. Great. Here's a bad way to do it. A bad way to do it would be to go 5 times to Twitter, pulling down 1 tweet. That would be bad for 2 reasons. First, it just took me 5 questions to ask something I could have asked in 1 question, right? Remember, I can only ask 15 in 15 minutes. I can only ask 1 a minute. So that was dumb. Also, if I ask it for 1 tweet, I'll get the same tweet 5 times, right? Like, it doesn't know that I didn't mean the most recent tweets. So this is what paging is. This command is the same command as above, except I have this extra argument, page equals 2. This is going to get me the next 5 tweets, okay? This is how I get 3,200 tweets. Because I get my 200, then I ask for 200 more, page equals 2. Then page equals 3, then page equals 4. As far as it lets me go, what's 32 divided by 200 is 16. The maximum effective is page equals 16. After 16, Twitter artificially shuts me down. Now, how far back do those 3,200 go? Do they go back years? Do they go back days? It depends how active your user is. If we were doing keyword search, they would only go back a week. But if you do a user search, you can go as far back in time as you want, up to 3,200. So if it's not a very active user, you can get their entire history to whenever Twitter was founded, 2000 and something. And if they're a super prolific user, that 3,200 might just take you back a day. Like if some bots are super active. Is that clear? Any questions? We're getting into like the limits, a little more nitty gritty. We're getting into the workarounds, which I just said is the major part of doing useful stuff, is learning all this crap. Here's a snippet for getting the 3,200 most recent tweets. I just gave it to you. I'm not going to make you figure it out. This is a sort of more efficient workaround because it's a common thing. Just give me the max I can get with as few questions asked as possible. This is how you do that. This snippet right here will give me, how many will it give me? It will give me 5. Oh, I think I did something wrong. Anyway, don't worry about it. It'll work. Boy, that was a lot of stuff. Here's all the exercises. I show you the boat house thing, and I ask you a bunch of questions. I ask you to find out how many followers from Mix-a-Lot has. I ask you to find an account, just pick some account, and find its reciprocal friends and followers. Find the people it has reciprocated relationships with, up to the limit allowed, which is going to be like less than 200. I asked you to find out what accounts are followed by both NASA and the CDC. Any guesses? It's not reasonable. There's just one. And it's not the White House. I know, it's crazy. It's NOAA. Good old NOAA. This is the circle. Find all the tweets. Actually, I thought this was a really good assignment, but there's lots of really big people in really skimpy outfits, which is not super appropriate for like an undergraduate homework assignment. And then here's your little challenge is figure out all the languages. Build like a histogram of all the languages of people who follow 2 famous football clubs. And to get a representation of how international and in what way they have different international followings. It turns out one of these, I forget, is it Real or Forza Barcelona, has a really big Arabic following. And then here's things you can do. Cheap bots done quick to make a bot. It's fun. Figure out your own followers, do a bunch of trend stuff, and do a bunch of geolocation stuff. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to now talk about, I'll go fairly quickly through resources, and then we'll have exercise time, which is, yeah, going to be about half hour. But I can pause for questions. Yeah.
How does the streaming API different than like an RSS feed?
That's a pretty good metaphor. It's just faster. Yeah, it's just a lot faster and it's Twitter specific. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So resource leads. Just like if you're thinking going into Python, are you allowed to say you know Python now? No. If an employer asks you, do you know Python, and you have this notebook on your hard drive, what are you allowed to say? You're allowed to say this. You're allowed to say, you know, you give me code that works and I can tweak the parameters. And like, that's actually hireable, which is sort of sad, but also great for you. Should you pay to learn? Like if you want to take classes, should you pay for class? You don't have to. If that motivates you, great, pay. But here's the single best teaching yourself Python resource. If you like the self-directed thing, which is a very grad school thing to do anyway, is have to teach yourself because your advisor has no idea, and but expects you to like just pick it up. Runestone.academy is really, 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 really good. Like, because of that, nobody should ever have to pay again, unless it motivates you. Python.org, like the Python site, has a getting started page that also has lots of resources and some beginner resources. And remember that thing I told you, like, this is going to take me 6 months to do manually. That's it'll take 3 seconds in code. That's 6 months to learn. The 6 months is a lot of time to get pretty good. Is it how good? How long do you have to be doing it where I am potentially working with you and I'm like, this is going to be great? I'm just going to tell this person to do something, and they'll come back, and it'll be done. Ha! It's like 4 years that you've been doing it that I'm like happy to see you. At 2 years, I'm like, we can make this work. It is my obligation to teach as a professor, so whatever. In less than 2 years, it's like, oh boy, you know, this is going to be some work. Of course, that's a lot faster if you've already got, say, 2 years of Python, or 2 years of R, or 4 years of MATLAB under your belt. That moves a lot quicker. Okay, so here's our limits. We're going to add the 1 week on users. Can't request more than 200 tweets per request or 100 retweets. Can't go further back than 3,200 tweets on a user. Can't go further back than a week on a keyword. Can't go more than 800 tweets for a timeline or a mention. Streaming only is 1% sample. Max of 15 requests in 15-minute window, which is the worst. If you can fit your question in all those constraints, good on you. That's awesome. You are going to be successful despite everything Twitter's done to make you unsuccessful. If you can't do what you want to do within those limits, here's your strategy sheet. And this goes beyond the notebook. You can pay. You can get a friend who's been, maybe there's certain institutions. Did you say you're partnering with Illinois? So there's some nerds in Illinois State University of who have been scraping Twitter, or at least some subset of it, certain keywords or some users, or all of it, or what? A lot of it. They wrote the bot. They wrote a bot that gets user accounts, and they did it before a bunch of Twitter shut a bunch of itself down, and they're using that to just rebuild a private version of all of Twitter going back to 2008. So you can make friends in high places is a great strategy. But it'll also be a lot cleaner than coming straight from Twitter. So you're in a sweet spot that you got them to be friends with you. So that's a strategy. Pay money is a strategy. Plan ahead's a strategy. You need 1 million tweets, but you have a year. So just start now, getting your 3,200 per user, or getting your streaming going, or whatever, and then do other science for the rest of the year until you have your big data set. The great thing about that, honestly, you get to go to I like productivity. I like feeling like I'm getting stuff done. Imagine like going to bed thinking not that was a good day, thinking I'm currently working really hard right now. And while I'm sleeping, I'll have been working really hard overnight, and when I wake up, I'll still be working really hard. And any bad day you have where you didn't get anything done, you actually got to also, in addition to getting nothing done, you got 1 million tweets that day. That feels great. So yeah, you could plan ahead and like work with the limits by using time instead of money. And you can get lots of accounts and then start like stream in parallel or do searches in parallel. Those are all workarounds. Here's more workarounds. Remember I talked about front door, back door, APIs, front door? There's also backdoors to Twitter. There's scrapers for Twitter in addition to APIs for Twitter. These are unofficial. If you tie them to your account, you might get your account banned or blocked. If you do them from certain IPs, it won't work at all because other people from your IP have already tried and gotten banned or blocked. You're going to start with a Twitter Scraper is a GitHub project, and Twint. I think Twitter Scraper is better. I'm actually honestly not too clear on the differences, but they are different. Okay, and then here's another strategy. This is also a really good one. Rather than having friends, there's some people who have too many friends already, and so rather than making you be friends with them to share their data set, they just put their data set up. One in particular is pushshift.io, is some nerd who likes sharing, and he'll let you download terabytes of data, or gigabytes of data, even though he has to pay for your downloads, which you can donate if you do a lot, and you should donate if you do a lot. Just search PushShift. It's very badly documented, so you have to do a Google site search to really find out what's there. This is the person who's publishing every tweet from every verified account every hour of every day, going back forever. So do a Google site search of PushShift. You can also do a Google site search of GitHub with like Twitter Scraper or Twitter Politics or Twitter Sentiment. I think this search does Twitter Sentiment. Yeah, and okay, here's a bunch of GitHub projects that analyze sentiment on Twitter. And some of them are gonna work. and a lot of them aren't. So try to install 10, 3 will work, and you didn't have to figure out sentiment analysis. What else? If you do need to do language processing, IBM Watson also has a free tier. A lot of it's like a sentiment analysis was trained on Twitter, so it's like made for working with Twitter. The Indiana University Observatory on Social Media has a huge suite of tools for analyzing tweets, including a lot of things that can tell if something's a bot, if something is fake news, and all this stuff. They have lots of high-level stuff. They were on the fake news thing like 5 years before anyone had ever heard of fake news. They were developing all this technology. They were really there first. Finding hashtags on a topic, it's common to want to look into a topic on Twitter, but maybe there's a lot of hashtags for that topic, and you don't want to search just one hashtag, you want to search them all. How do you find the most popular hashtags for a topic? Does anyone know the answer to this? Because you might have just found this on your own. I'm actually kind of hoping someone does, because I don't, but I know there's a right answer. I just have to ask my grad students. I'm no exception. My grad students know more about this than me. I tried to invite them so you could get really useful advice, but you're stuck with me. Yeah, that's exercise time. So we've got, 25 minutes, not bad. Let's do a couple more questions. Questions? No, because I gave you a bunch of resources. I gave you all these workarounds. Let's go again through the workarounds, and I'll solicit questions. You can pay. You can have fancy friends. You can plan ahead. You can get lots of accounts, which is pretty tedious, but you know. You can scrape Twitter unofficially, and you can use someone else's archive. Any questions about the workarounds? There's a very good chance that your project does not fit within Twitter API constraints, and you have to use a workaround. Using a workaround means having to know more Python, which is a good excuse to learn more Python on the one hand, but is prohibitive on the other possibly. But these are your options. And you can get past that 3,200. You can get past the 1 week. You can get past the 1% limit on streaming. You can get around all those limits by going to scrapers or doing other things. Can I get arrested for saying any of this? The answer is no. It is a violation of terms of service. And if one were to encourage you to do any of that, they would be some people. I guess it's supposed to be unethical, but I don't feel bad. If you did it, you'd be violating the terms of service. Which, I don't know, maybe you feel bad about that? If so, that's admirable, I think.
Another workaround
You might think about, because there's the paid option, is when you apply for a grant, put that in your budget. If you know it's going to charge, like plan ahead that way for your project. It'll ensure that you have good access, you can get what you need. Most folks don't think about the fact that their data is costing something. They think about putting in staff time, or maybe they need to buy a new computer. But chances are for any research project, you're going to have to be acquiring your data, and that's going to cost time.
And these companies love it when people want to pay for their data. So you can find a sales rep who will quote you, hey, I need all tweets on this subject, about this many from this time span. And they'll give you a price, and you can plug that right in your grant. And they'll respond super quick because they're salespeople and they get commissions.
And they often give back.
Questions? Yeah?
Can you give an example of something like a recent project you did or your group did and how you got around, like using workarounds?
Yeah. Let's see. A student wants to, we want to correlate, so planet.com has a really cool API. They have satellite pictures of the Earth every day to 2016. And we wanted to see, this is used a lot for agricultural and like weather and climate change purposes. We wanted to use it for, can we see how long this or that protest went on? And can we correlate that with social media activity around that protest? To answer the question, what does protest cause social media activity, or does social media activity cause protest, or both, and what, and so on, blah, blah, blah. So we can get the historical data from planet.com, but to get the historical data on the protests, is hard because of the 1 week limit. So if we want to examine any protest that didn't happen a week ago and we're not on top of it to just track protests as they happen, then we have to scrape Twitter to get historical hashtags. That's one. Does anyone actually have a project in mind that they already realize with all the limits I shared they're going to have to work around? What you might, security. You might need more than 1% sample to really like know that you didn't miss any threats, right? I think maybe if you stream a user, you get the whole sample. Maybe it's only if you stream a keyword that you're throttled to 1%. I see. Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah. I know people who do need a complete sample, so they'll build, like you don't get, so sampling with replacement means that you can't create 100 accounts because 100 times 1% equals 100%. You have to get more than 100 accounts because of the sampling with replacement to get everything on a subject. Go on. Did that answer your question? I would love to get more examples. Someone, like, out of the 40 people in this room, someone, oh yeah.
I'll get one. So we had a team of researchers come to us here for help. They were interested in the GNet Summit that happened a few years ago. And they had the conference proceedings, all the talks, they had transcriptions of all the talks, and they wanted to know what was going on in the digital space because these talks were being broadcast all over the world. Who was watching it? They had no data on how far the broadcast was reaching and how many conversations were surrounding this conference about genetic engineering. And so Twitter, they thought was a good place to go to. So they needed every tweet that focused or at all reference.
And it was historical, and that's why you had to do a workaround? What workaround?
So they had been doing kind of time, like just planning, going back, and they had multiple accounts to do it. They had a little bit of funding, so I think
they paid for some and then they scraped? Okay, they scraped.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what against your application that you had to find fancy people, that you couldn't just use the API?
Just what's the second part of my project?
Yeah, what about your project made you have to do a workaround?
Oh, well, I'm looking at regional like attitudes towards immigrants on Twitter. So I need geolocated data and I need a lot of tweets over time.
All right. And maybe you needed it fast, so you didn't want to write a scraper and then wait a year for data. You wanted it now.
Well, I don't really need it now.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, you can also just find someone fancy and skip all having to know any of the limits. All right, that's pretty good. So let's dive into exercises. This will be break time. I'll circulate. Once again, it's all the exercises are at the bottom of your notebook. If you want to do these on your own time and you want to show off, I love it when people show off things they built. So if you built something and you wanted to brag but no one cares, I care. So these are exercises. You can do an exercise, or there's less structured stuff. You want to build a bot. That's all the further exploration. So read it and pick something. You can work with the person next to you, or just do your own thing and ticka silently in obscurity.
And because this is the time in workshops where people usually start trickling out, even though we all know that hands-on practice is the best way to actually learn something. If you are going to duck out, we kindly request that you give us some workshop feedback. You'll get at the end of the quarter a larger feedback assessment to tell us what you like, and we'll have specific responses for that. This is really useful for us for being able to continue to add value and offer workshops. And we have the opportunity to tell us what other topics you might be interested in. But for today, to give Seth some immediate feedback, we have some stickies. And we usually use these as a pedagogical tool. You can tell us how things are going during your workshop. This is really happy when there's a lot of heavy coding that's going on. We didn't have to do as much of that today, so we gave them to you for feedback. So if you could please, before you leave, you don't have to do it right now. It's fun to do the exercise.
Actually, you do have to do it right now.
Do it right now. Okay. On the blue one, if you could talk about something to keep if you do another workshop, something you learned, something you like, that's really helpful. And then on the pink one, I have it on board too. The pink one is a place to write things that you would change or drop about today's workshop. So what should we do differently next time? Or things you wish we talked about.
And feedback's super important to me. It's how I get it's how I get paid for doing this, is by getting your responses. So if you think I deserve any payment, you can just give me comments instead.
Praise, criticism.
Yeah,
whatever.
all that. All that.
Thanks, guys.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay, so I realize I'm interacting with this phone,
Cool.
but